Hey guys, Kyle the Death Knight of Anime here, bringing my review for One Piece episode 792. And yeah, I know I skipped the last episode, but to be honest with you guys, the last episode was total shit. Like the pacing of the last episode, it was bad, and it didn't really start picking up on this episode until the very end. Whereas this episode, it's still slow pacing, but there is still some good stuff in here. Like honestly, like this whole content in the force itself, I remember reading it in the manga, and to be honest with you, the anime isn't like it isn't just guys. I want you to understand, it isn't just the anime's fault. The manga was the manga had a slow pace in terms of this whole content in the forest as well. So honestly, like it's this whole content in general, it wasn't my favorite, but there's as far as like this episode to the last episode, there's a little bit more interesting content in this one to talk about. Um, the first thing to note is this entire forest as a whole. It pretty much has them trapped. It pretty much has them trapped in here, and honestly, I wouldn't. And honestly, this whole forest has the crew, has Nami, Carrot, and Luffy trapped. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if Pudding had lured them in here. Like, I know Pudding came off as sweet and nice and whatnot, but if there's anything I've learned from Oda's writing, it's that he has this way of showing his characters as deception is the purest evil. And yeah, Oda does good at showing that deception characters can come across as nice and cute, but I'm sure deep down they're fucked up in the head. So yeah, like I'm sure it was her who did that. And again, like us, and actually in this one we also learned that Luffy he disappeared. He disappeared, honestly. Like it looked like he was fighting his doppelganger, but the moment he and his doppelganger split up after leaving the forest, Luffy apparently was switched out or something. So it makes me wonder when that happened. But yeah, um, but the biggest advantage for this episode, I think, for me that really made it entertaining was the soundtrack and the voice acting. The soundtrack when the log pose and the clocks were spinning, it added a very nice touch of suspense and just creepiness to the whole episode, and the voice acting. Oh my god, the voice acting in this episode was just pure perfection. Like honestly, the voice acting in this episode, I'm not sure who's doing the voice. I'm not sure who's doing the voice for like all these talking inanimate objects or whatever. But by God, it's creepy as fuck, okay? And it literally had it literally made me like actually wanna it actually literally made me hug myself. Like I was legitimately freaked out. It creeped me the fuck out, and I was legitimately freaked out. Like, mommy. Okay, I didn't go do that, but yeah, that whole the soundtrack and the voice acting in this was top notch in this one. Um, well, and like I said, we get introduced to three people. The first one was of course, that guy who had his head in the ground, who I assume is Lola's father right now. I'm guessing is Lola's father. And then we have Randolph, and a third one we get introduced is one of Big Mom's is one someone who is Big Mom's daughter, is the eighth daughter of the Charlotte family, Brûlée in this episode. And I think, like I said before, in this episode, Luffy had disappeared, and I wouldn't be surprised if she was the one who's responsible in some form or fashion. But because, as we see, Brûlée has the ability to shapeshift or to shape change or to change into another person. So if that's her power, I'm sure that she is the one responsible for whatever happened to Luffy. Although I wonder where it's like I said, I wonder where he is, because we as we see when Luffy, Chopper, Carrot, and Nami are trying to escape the forest. We basically see how basically both him and his double split up. So I wonder at what point did those two did Luffy and Brûlée switch? I imagine it was somewhere off Imagine if anything, it was somewhere off screen. Like we didn't see it happen, but I'm sure it happened during the time when the fight between Luffy and his double actually started. I think it was probably around that point. Um, and aside from that, we also get a little we also get a lot of cool stuff with Sanji in this episode. Like we see actually a little bit of a hint with actually a little bit of hint of Sanji's past when Sanji's looking at that at I guess a little bit of a crack in the wall. We get a little hint of seeing of seeing four. I think it was four shadows pretty much. One of them is lying on the ground, and the other three are standing up over them. So I think that's kind of a way of showing a hint of abuse at the hands of Sanji and his that Sanji had endured at the hands of his siblings. And Yonji, you are a crusty motherfucker for bragging about calling Sanji weak when he kicked the shit out of you, motherfucker. Yonji, you are just a piece of crusty shit. Cause seriously, he kicked your ass, and he kicked your ass. Remember that little bruise on your cheek, motherfucker? Yeah, he kicked your ass on that one. But and yeah, I don't. And yeah, you're bragging about how he's weak. Yeah, trust me. If you guys didn't have, trust me, I think if you guys didn't have Zeph the Baratier and Luffy's and the Zeph the Barati and all this other stuff hanging over his head, I'm pretty sure he could easily kick your ass. And from what it seems, it looks like he actually did once again, hopefully. But yeah, but actually that whole exchange with Sanji and Yonji, that whole little mini fight with Sanji and Yonji, I forget if that was in the manga or not because from what I remember, I don't know if it was that long or if they extended that scene a bit. But in either way, like Yonji, just go fuck yourself. But and I guess the only other issue is, aside from the pacing, is that there were a couple of frames of animation in this, a couple of repeated frames of animation in this episode. But other than that, it was just an. I guess this episode as a whole, it was an okay episode, to be honest with you. It wasn't anything grand or good, but it was okay for what it was. But it was okay for what it was. We definitely got a lot of exposition, a lot of good stuff in this episode, and hopefully next episode, it looks like next episode's gonna, some shit's going down, and it's gonna be Nami and Carrot versus one of the Charlotte daughters, and hopefully we'll also get to see what happened to Luffy. But yeah, guys, that's my review. If you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe, or follow me on Twitter and Facebook. Death Knight of Anime, signing off. Later, guys.